face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Simandou, your host for the news this hour. Stay tuned. We'll start with the African Continental Free Trade Area. African governments and entrepreneurs need to seize the opportunities of the African Continental Free Trade Area and a shift from national markets to a unified continental market of 1.5 billion people, Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia, Albert Muchanga, said. In an exclusive interview with Pulse of Africa, Ambassador Muchanga, beginning his second tour of duty in Ethiopia, emphasized that Zambia and Ethiopia could play a pivotal role in advancing industrial collaboration and economic integration across Africa. Most of our industries across Africa were designed for the national market. Now we need to cluster our industries to supply this large market and move towards a customs union, he said. Highlighting areas of potential collaboration, Ambassador Muchanga identified agriculture, mining, civil aviation, education, science and labor productivity as key sectors.
Both Ethiopia and Zambia have signed and ratified the agreement. Now, after signing and ratifying the agreement, the next stage is to ensure that we supply the market to scale. The African Continental Free Trade Area has an aggregate population of 1.5 billion people. Most of our industries across Africa, they were designed for the national market. So there's a lot of scope for entrepreneurs from the two countries to get together to say, how do we cluster our industries so that we are able to supply this large market? So that's a great opportunity.
He pointed to opportunities for trade in agro-processed goods, partnerships between Zambian and Ethiopian mining companies, and cooperation between universities with qualifications mutually recognized in both countries. Civil aviation also emerged as a strategic sector, noting Ethiopian Airlines' stake in Zambian Airways. Beyond bilateral interests, the ambassador underscored the importance of African unity in shaping the continent's role in the changing global order. Africa should be part of the designers of the changing world order, he stated. Citing the historical significance of Ethiopia as the birthplace of the OAU and the African Union, Ambassador Muchanga emphasized Zambia and Ethiopia's potential to work together in fostering continental industrial integration under the African Continental Free Trade Area.
The danger we are always facing are the third parties. The world out there, they see a large market. So they'll come up with the ways and means of trying to sell into the market through the other means. So in order to ensure that this does not happen, and there's already provision in the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, Africa must move towards a customs union. So we need to convince the governments, we need to convince the private sector that this is the direction in which we should move.
He urged African governments and the private sector to seize the opportunity presented by the African Continental Free Trade Area single market of 1.5 billion people. Most of our industries across Africa were designed for the national market. We now need to cluster our industries to supply this large market and move towards a customs union, he said, calling on entrepreneurs to build capacity to meet continental demand consistently. Ambassador Muchanga's return to signals a renewed focus on enhancing Zambia-Ethiopia relations while contributing to Africa's broader economic and strategic objectives. His tenure promises a proactive approach to diplomacy, trade and regional integration, reflecting both countries' shared vision for a stronger, united continent. Nearly 20% of mammal species in South Africa, Lesotho, and Eswatini are at risk of extinction, according to the regional mammal-led red list of threatened species released in January 2026. Covering data compiled up to 2025, the assessment is the most comprehensive review of mammalian biodiversity ever undertaken for the three countries. It was coordinated by the Endangered Wildlife Trust (EWT) and the South African National Biodiversity Institute (SANBI), with contributions from more than 150 experts in mammal conservation and taxonomy. A total of 336 mammal taxa were assessed. The report shows that 11 species have been uplisted to higher threat categories, indicating deteriorating conservation status, while only 3 species were downlisted, reflecting limited recovery. The findings are particularly alarming for endemic species. One of 67 mammals found only in South Africa, Lesotho, and Eswatini, 42% are classified as threatened, meaning their survival depends entirely on conservation action within the region. The high level of risk faced by endemic species means that extinctions here would be global extinctions. The report warns habitat loss and degradation driven by agriculture, urban expansion, and infrastructure development remain the leading causes of decline. Climate change is increasingly compounding these pressures by alerting assets and resource availability, by altering availability, illegal hunting, and wildlife trafficking threaten several species, especially large mammals. The report calls for region-specific conservation strategies that integrate biodiversity protection with community livelihoods and climate resilience. It also underscores the importance of strengthening African-led conservation science and policy. While about 76% of the assessed species benefit from moderate to strong protection, nearly a quarter remain poorly protected or unprotected, leaving them highly vulnerable. As Southern Africa faces accelerating biodiversity loss alongside climate change, the report serves as both a stark warning and a practical roadmap for safeguarding mammal species and the ecosystems and communities that depend on them.
In Ethiopia, more homes and businesses now have access to electricity. Access to power supports education, healthcare, and local businesses. Light changes lives.
The African Development Bank Group has reaffirmed its commitment to support Guinea's Simandou 2040 program, a flagship national development initiative targeting $200 billion in investment by 2040. African Development Bank President Dr. Sidi Oltak made the pledge in Conakry during a visit to attend the inauguration of President Mamadi Doumbouya, elected leader of Guinea's Fifth Republic. He was received by Minister of Economy and Finance Mora Soma and Minister of Planning and International Cooperation Ismail Nebe. Dr. Olta held discussions with Ghanaian authorities on strengthening cooperation around national priorities outlined in the Simandou 2040 Sustainable Development Programme, while welcoming Guinea's recent decision to contribute to the African Development Fund, ADF. I recommend the historic contribution of the Republic of Guinea to the 17th replenishment of the African Development Fund and express our profound gratitude for his unprecedented support, Dr. Olta said, noting that Guinea is among 19 African countries pledging contribution to ADF 17. The Simandou 2040 program, anchored on one of the world's largest untapped iron ore reserves, aims to transform Guinea's economy through infrastructure development, industrialization, diversification, and improved living standards, with African Development Bank expected to play a central financing and advisory role. Aya Gold and Silver has reported a robust exploration performance in 2025, delivering significant reserve and resource growth across its flagship Zigunder and Boumediene projects in Morocco following an intensive drilling campaign exceeding 175,000 meters. At the Zigunder silver mine, the company surpassed its drilling targets, confirming strong mineralization both at depth and along strike. Results from the program translated into a substantial upgrade in the asset's mineral inventory, with proven and probable silver reserves rising to 73 million ounces, while measured and indicated resources increased to 100 million ounces. Aya also expanded its exploration footprint at Zigunder by securing 6 additional permits, opening up new areas for further resource growth. The company recorded similarly strong progress at its Boumediene polymetric project, with more than 150,000 metric tons of drilling which were completed during the year. The campaign delivered multiple high-grade silver equivalent intercepts across the main mineralized trend and at the TZ zone, reinforcing Boumediene's status as a large-scale, high-potential polymetric system. An updated mineral resource estimate showed a 19% increase in indicated resources, while the addition of 10 new exploration permits highlighted significant upside that is not yet fully reflected in current resource figures. Together, the results underscore Aya Gold and Silver's emergence as one of the leading silver explorers in Morocco, supported by aggressive drilling and position expansion and continued success in converting exploration results into high reserves and resources. Aya Gold and Silver is a precious metals mining and exploration company focused on silver and polymetric deposits in the Kingdom of Morocco. Its core assets include producing Zonder and Silver Mine and the Boumediene project, where continued drilling and permit acquisition are aimed at unlocking further value and driving long-term growth. Moving on to our business headlines, Nigeria generated $6.1 billion in revenue from non-oil exports in 2025, marking an all-time high for formally documented trade in the sector, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, has said. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja on Nigeria's 2025 non-oil export performance and 2026 outlook, NEPC Executive Director Nonye Ayeni said the figure represents an 11.5% increase from the $5.46 billion recorded in 2024, reflecting progress in economic diversification, higher export volumes, and expanding global markets. Ayeni noted that non-oil export volumes rose by 10% year-on-year to 8.02 million metric tons, driven by improved activity across multiple value chains. Nigeria exported 281 non-oil products in 2025, spanning agriculture, processed and semi-processed goods, industrial inputs, and solid minerals. She said Nigerian non-oil exports reached 120 countries, with the Netherlands, Brazil, and India emerging as the top destinations by value. Exports to the Netherlands rose by 32.46%, while shipments to Brazil increased by 19.07%, led by products such as cocoa, sesame seeds, cashew, urea, and solid minerals. Ayeni attributed the strong performance to reforms under President Bola Tinubu's renewed HOP agenda, supportive trade policies, and NEPC initiatives on capacity building, certification, and market access. She added that while exports to ECOWAS dipped slightly, the African Continental Free Trade Area remains key to expanding intra-African trade and positioning Nigeria as a regional export hub. South Africa's Nedbank Group has announced plans to acquire 66% stake in Kenya's NCBA Group in a cash and share transaction valued at 13.9 billion rand, equivalent to $856 million, marking a major expansion of the lender's footprint in East Africa. Nedbank said the proposed transaction will be settled 20% in cash and 80% through newly issued Nedbank ordinary shares priced at a reference value of 250 Rand per share. The new shares will be listed on Johannesburg Stock Exchange, while the remaining 34% stake in NCBA will continue to trade publicly on Nairobi Securities Exchange. Upon completion, NCBA will become a subsidiary of Nedbank, but would remain its broad local management structure and separate stock market listing. The two lenders said. Nedbank Group Chief Executive Jason Quinn described the deal as a strategic milestone in the bank's regional growth agenda. By combining NCBA's strong local presence with Nedbank's capital base, expertise and long-term commitment to Africa, we see a compelling platform for sustainable growth across the region. Quinn said Nedbank identified East Africa as a priority growth market, citing favorable macroeconomic prospects, a fast-growing population, and the region's strategic role as a trade corridor linking Africa with the Middle East, India, and Asia. NCBA Group operates across Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda and provides digital banking services in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. NCBA serves more than 60 million customers and operates a network of 122 branches. Now to sports headlines. The CAF Disciplinary Board has handed down a series of sanctions against Algeria following incidents during the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025 match against Nigeria played on 10 January 2026. Algeria goalkeeper Lucas Zidane was suspended for 2 CAF official matches for misconduct, while defender Rafik Belgali received a 4-match suspension for aggressive and intimidating behavior towards the referee. However, 2 of Belagi's matches were suspended on probation for 1 year. CAF also fined the Algerian Football Federation (FAF) $5,000 after the national team received 5 yellow cards during the match, breaching disciplinary regulations. Additional fines were imposed for post-match misconduct, with CAF levying $25,000 on the FAF for inappropriate behavior by players and officials that brought the game into disrepute. Supporter-related offences attracted the heaviest penalties, including fines totaling $70,000 for the use of smoke devices, throwing of objects, security breaches, and offensive gestures towards match officials, underscoring CAF's firm stance on discipline and crowd control at the tournament. Now, let's take a look at the weather forecast across Africa. That's it for the hour. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.